Hello, friends. Welcome back to Rip It Off. And I know, like little dance. Don't you want to do a little dance?
Yes.
We are going to talk about sex and money and click. Someone's like, and peace out. I'm done.
Bye.
Sex, I'm
No,
fine.
thank you.
But we're
Hard
going to throw
pass.
money
And
into
next.
this, right?
Two of the worst, most taboo things. Let's do it. Let's go, girl.
Exactly. My goodness. Oh, but I could not think of two more amazing women to have this conversation with than Shayna and Vanessa of the Budget Besties. You're my favorite.
We are the Budget Besties, and you're our favorite. You are our business budget bestie, too. So it's awesome. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I am so excited for this conversation because, you know, who doesn't like to start a morning off with money and sex? And why not?
Well, it's one of those things like eat the biggest frog first, right? We're just going to talk all about the things and get it out there. And then you can go about your day.
Right? You can just listen and then click. You put it on 3. You know, I like speed this puppy up and you're like,
yeah, let's get the
not so
uncomfortable over with all at once.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's we're not very dissimilar. We're not dissimilar really at all. We know that these are hard conversations, but the sooner you have them, the better it is. Okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Tell everybody who you guys are first.
Well, we are Shayna and Vanessa. We are the Budget Besties. We love to talk about the B word. And our goal for you is to be bougie on a budget.
Yeah, we particularly, we help women who make good money but have nothing to show for it set up a budget system that's tailored to their real life and their big dreams, right? We try to be different than other people in this space. And hopefully you'll hear that come through today. And we're also besties with Michelle. And so we are all pioneering talking about the worst subjects that people are most scared of together today. And I think it's going to be fun.
Well, I also believe, like Shayna said, we have a different take on it. We want to bring light to the conversation. It's not taboo. We don't want it to be taboo. We want it to be like a light, refreshing conversation. And like, I know you, Michelle, there's a lot of taboo with what you speak about, but we want to normalize it. We want to have conversations with it because you do need to talk about it.
Especially inside the church. I think we're going to get to that, Michelle, but I think that it's already taboo, but that's like a whole nother deep down, bury it as far as you can level with that. I will say really quick, we have a podcast episode, Vanessa, what was it that we did that actually gets decent plays right off the bat? We did it. What was it? Do you remember?
It's talking about sex.
Yeah. But do you remember why you need to have more sex with your husband or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So
no big deal.
We're not strangers to this conversation. Let's go. Let's get in.
I feel like have sex and then have the money conversation. Yeah. Like it can't
in that order.
Yes. Or back. Yes. Or if you're like, wow, that really was a bad conversation. Let's just have sex.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to solve all the problems.
It's going to really get a lot of them. Yeah. We had a client once, Michelle, and then we can get to the actual orderly structure of this episode, that her husband wouldn't come to the budget meetings unless they were naked. So that was a thing and it worked for them. You know, whatever works for you guys, whatever works for you.
So she would have her session with Shayna and then she would bring all the information back to the bedroom and they would have a quote unquote super fun budget session together.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying because I was like, we're not.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's good idea.
I've had to explain that a couple times because I did that to my clients one time and they was like, wait, hold on. Let me re-explain what I meant.
What rate is that?
Did they come like
a secret VIP?
They did not explain that correctly.
Super close up. I was figuring that you weren't seeing them naked. Anyways, this is going to go down over. I am just glad to know that in private they had that conversation.
Yes. Those
naked.
2 married people had their budget session together.
By themselves.
Whoever was just about to tune out, it was like, well, actually, I want to see where this train wreck is going to go.
Yeah. Are these women actually Christian? What's really happening here?
I'm here for all of it. I'm always like, well, here's a few questions, but let's just see where the Holy Spirit goes with this. And clearly he's like, actually, we're going to make a solid right turn and just go there.
We're going to have a good time.
No, and I feel the same way, like budgeting. As you were talking, I was thinking when I was a kid, you know, this idea of we don't talk about money. Like you don't talk about money. It's impolite. You don't ask a woman how old she is. It's impolite. And I get the theory behind it. You know, you don't just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, how much money do you make? Which I don't really think kids were doing that, but it creates this barrier of like, oh, okay, well, I guess we don't talk about money. So then you become an adult and you're like, but I don't even know how to talk about money, which is the exact same thing that happens with sex because we misinterpret scripture just like we misinterpret scripture when it comes to money. And so we're all screwed up. So, I mean,
I'm going to relay this back to like with your kids as parents. You know, we always say that you grow up financially illiterate. because it's something that parents don't talk about with their kids. They expect maybe their job or their boss or their school, or so obviously somebody else is doing that, right? But they're not. So then your kids, like you said, have no idea how to talk about it. And then the sex conversation as well, that's taboo. Well, my kids will learn about it through sex ed. Like they'll have that conversation and then they're not. And then they're learning about it from their
Wrong
friends,
place.
which is the worst place to learn about intimate conversations like this. So it's just a whole mess up conversation that never happens.
Yep.
Take what
completely.
she said and add on to it, because there is a conversation happening. It's
Yeah.
all wrong.
Totally.
So whatever they teach you in school about sex ed is maybe it's useful. I don't know. It is not what you talk about. It's
Right.
not the actual
What that
intimacy,
parent
how to
conversation
build
should be.
that relationship with your spouse. Like that is what really matters, but nobody's talking about that. The same with budgeting or whatever, personal finance. What you learn possibly in school is how to get a good credit score. Like that's really what the bulk of the education is out there, which is why we try to teach specifically taking ownership of your money, just like we want you to take ownership of your sex life, right? Like let's own this. Let's not put it over there.
Mhm.
Let's not keep it in the corner, head in the sand, pretend like this is not something that we're dealing with. No, we're adulting. We're going to do on purpose what we want with both of these areas of their lives. And so anyway, my point was just the actual information that people get is if it's correct, which is questionable, is not nearly what they actually need to be successful.
Well, I would even say, if it's even happening, what they're getting is incorrect information.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that leads me into the question I always have to ask every single person I'm interviewing. What is a lie that you would love to rip off? And maybe it's a lie straight from the church. Maybe it's just a lie about money in general that you're like, this has got to go. We're done with it.
I'm going to say that people think that money is compartmentalized into its own little subject and conversation, where honestly, it spews over into every single part of your life. When you're talking about your big goals and vision, you need money to do that. When you talk about having a servant's heart and wanting to give and be resourceful to people, you need money to financially be stable enough to do that. Even time. If you're wanting to donate your time, you need to be financially stable to have the time to be able to do that. Having sex and being intimate with your spouse, you can't fully be present sometimes because you may be thinking about finances. You may be super stressed about what's going on, with your budget or the non-budget that you have, that you can't be there in the room present. So we just think that finances are such a big part of people's lives, but sometimes they don't realize how much it is involved in everything.
Absolutely. It's so commingled with every part of it, just like your sex life and your intimate life within your marriage, which is one thing that I talk about a lot is sex and intimacy are not the same thing. They're used as synonyms and they're really
you can
not.
have sex without being intimate.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. But one of those, there's 13 types of intimacy. One of those is financial intimacy. I should have said this from the very beginning. The reason I know you guys is because I work with you guys and I love you guys. You guys have helped me and my husband with our budget and really working on this. But having that conversation about finances is tricky and challenging and hard. And you constantly come from a place of like, well, he kind of knows what's going on there. And yeah, if I don't say this. And so if you don't have that intimate, that opportunity to have those conversations and build that financial intimacy, you don't learn how to overcome obstacles and you don't have to, you don't learn how to talk about these things and get to the other side, which then maybe leads to a naked, financial conversation and then hopefully some sex.
I think people would rather or think it's easier to be naked in front of their spouse than to have a conversation about money, like a real conversation about money. I think there's a lot, what we see, I know for me personally, whatever baggage that you had growing up, that's why, so I always say, the answer was sort of like always no. And so for things that required money. And so I like projected that onto my husband, and therefore we're not going to talk about money. I'm just going to try to make it work with whatever little bit amount that we have or whatever. And I'm not going to talk about what I really want or whatever. And it was not even his fault. Like he didn't
ask for that.
Any part of that. It was just what I had projected on from my childhood. And I think a lot of these, and that's just my version. Everybody has their own version of whatever thing that you have, money baggage, that you bring into your marriage. And then we're unfortunately, it's kind of muddy there and we have to on purpose clear it up.
Yeah. Well, I think what's huge about what you just said, Shayna, is that you recognized it. That you got to a point where you realized that actually what you were thinking was never a conversation you and your husband had. And yet it created issues that never were there. But what did you do? You had a conversation about that, which is really what you guys help facilitate with your business.
Yep. And we tell you to bribe them if you have to. Like
It
whatever.
works.
Like, listen, we're not beneath that or above that or whichever direction you're supposed to go. We're not that. Like what Vanessa will always say, like, yes, it might be ugly, but just get it over with. Like, and it's going to be hard, maybe the first conversation, but then from there on out, it's all out in the open and we can actually start to heal and work together and move forward. But, you know, so getting each other to that first conversation and getting through it, we're like, whatever, if somebody's coming in naked, not the coach, remember, not a coach, just the people in the marriage. If you're bringing snacks, if you're making a date night, like whatever you got to do, bribe them to get there. We're for it.
Usually it's the women, you know, we are budget besties and we obviously
have a lot of pink.
Yeah, our budget's pink and teal. It's fine. You know, you love it, Michelle. But, you know, normally it's the women that come to us. We've had some men that say, hey, I heard your podcast and sent it to my wife. It's the women who feel the burden of the finances because the husband is working, and not that she's not working, but they're trying to let him do his job and be the head of household. And she's just trying to, like Shayna said, make it work. She's trying to figure it out, trying not to bother him and upset him with what's going on. So sometimes when we bring change on, they're not really for it because they're like, well, obviously what we have is going, it's working. So, and they don't know that she's racked up $40,000 in credit card debt to make it work, you know, not on purpose, but just to try to make ends meet. And so they are not usually on board at the very beginning when they don't know the full picture and they don't know what's going on. So yes, we are for the bourbon and budgets or beer and budgets, and bring them in and have the conversations, have the sex with it, whatever you need to do to get them there. And then you guys can sit down and have a very transparent, very open and honest conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I think that another thing that's interesting is another interesting comparison is with both. You might be afraid to actually ask for what you want. This is going to go
true.
So fun.
No, it's absolutely true. There is such correlation. Like if you can't verbalize the financial issues, I'm guessing you might be having trouble verbalizing the sexual issues.
Yeah. And that's something you also have to deal with, because it's one thing to just have like numbers, but that's not, like, we always want you to start with goals, and then the numbers are going to get your goals accomplished. Right. And so I think, you know, being able to say, you know, what you want, why this is important to you, what's not working, those are things that you want to think about probably too.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we've had those conversations, my husband and I, in the past. And, you know, just a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell him about this because, you know, whatever, you know, money got spent unwisely, or it just got like, it disappeared and I don't know. And it's kind of like when you come home and you failed a test and you're like, okay, I got to tell my parents. Like it's that, oh, you feel sick in your stomach. And once you get it out, it might not be a perfect situation, but at least it's out. And now you can start from the truth there. And definitely move on to the next thing.
Well, and because I'm going to keep doing this, so you can interrupt me. But the other thing, so we have whatever the avatar of the woman who may be afraid or maybe doesn't want to burden her husband. We also have the husband, right? Who we know from experience, you know, money has a little bit of pride tied to it, right? So, and men, right, and we always want to honor that, like that, and I think that's where it gets very sticky. So a man is providing, so we don't want to come and, or we feel like we're coming and possibly and saying you're not doing good enough, or at least that's what they hear, even though that is not what we say or mean or whatever. So there's that too. We have to address, like we always try to tell them, like, make sure that we're all understanding that it's awesome. Like, thank you for all that you're doing, all the hard work you're doing. This is where it's all going to go. Like, it is great. It's not like you're not doing enough and so men see it that way. They see it sort of as a scorecard, and therefore there's a wall there for them. For women, maybe it's security. They have their own wall, but there's like different things that we have to address.
Well, and also what we've seen is the women, the wife, whoever, they've been handling or dealing with this, stressing about it. The weight has been on their shoulders, usually for months. When you go to have that conversation with your husband, he may freak out. he may get really mad because he hasn't had time to process, where you've cried about it, you've stressed about it, maybe you've had a little chocolate about it, ice cream, whatever. Like you've had time. He hasn't. And this has happened to multiple of our clients where we encourage them because they're like, my husband doesn't know. And I'm like, well, you have to have this conversation. And we outline the conversation. We really help them through that. And then they would tell us, hey, this is how it went. And the big part of that was allow them a chance to process everything that you're about to tell them, because you have sat with it for a minute. They have not. So yeah, he may get mad. That's okay. Just let him be all in his feels for a minute. And then y'all can have a conversation together about where you want to go from here.
Yeah. Well, and I can speak from experience because I feel like that was the last time we sat down and talked, Vanessa. I'm like crying. Because you hold this, and I look at it as this is a gift I can give to my husband to manage the funds and to do it in a way. And he's so gracious and so kind. And he's like, I appreciate everything you're doing, but all he would see is money coming in and be like, okay, but we should be able to do X, Y, and Z, and it should be able to do. And I'm like, yes. However, and so in my experience, it was so great to sit down actually with you, Vanessa, and say, okay, here's where everything is. And yet still he walked away a little with like I need to be doing more. I'm like, that's not what was said there. But it was like, I felt like it was a huge step forward. And just like having those conversations about sex or intimacy, it's like once you start that conversation, you're like, okay, it just gets easier and easier. And you have like a visual of like, okay, I see what is going on here. And one thing that I will say too about you guys, what I love is there's no shame. So it's not like you've got your husband that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm worried what he's going to say. And then I'm going to talk to these coaches and I'm going to feel, because I've done that before. I've worked with coaches that were just constantly like, well, I mean, that's not how you should have spent your money. That's not where that's supposed to go. That's not how that's supposed to do. And so I would imagine that you have these women that are coming and they're fearful and they're feeling shame. And how has your system just kind of alleviated that for them?
Well, I think our system is different than anything that you're going to find, as you can speak to as well. Because it really allows you to be removed from it once you set it up. And that's our goal. We know that, I mean, I had a lady one time, Michelle, that was transferring like 17 cents into her bank account from account because for her and her brain, it had to be that perfect.
Wow.
And so, just removing that stress of like, I have to be in it. I have to be manually doing things all the time. And the way that we have our system is the budget that we have you set up matches what you do with your hands. Oh, and then by the way, once you set it up, literally you can make it automatic and you can kind of step away from it, minus a couple of things like the in-month things that are happening. But really, we want it to be off your hands as much as possible.
Yeah. And another thing I'll say, just in general, like I think the fact that we focus on goals is a big deal. So I remember one of our earliest clients, when Vanessa asked them what their goals were, she started crying because no one had ever asked her that. So the intimacy it requires for you both to be on this together. I always say that for me, when we did our sort of Dave Ramsey journey separately, but for me, the biggest goal the biggest gain was not money. It was the closeness that I got with my husband because we were working as a team on this, right? I thought that was the biggest thing. And so when you do that, when you're working together as a team on a goal, whether it's to save more money, to save for the vacation or pay off debt, whatever, I think that it strengthens a marriage really well. The other flip side of that is you start to dream again. We want you to dream. You remember when you got married, you had dreams, you had goals.
You had a vision.
You had a vision for your life. We want to bring it back to that and say, what is that? And how does our money accomplish that? And when you have that, that's also like exciting, right? That's exciting. Let's dream again together as a couple. And I think that that's both of those things are important and part of it. And then there's the actual tactical, getting the stress out of your daily life, the saving you time. Both of you always have spending money coming in every payday. Nobody has to worry. The groceries are paid for, his fishing trips, like everybody knows that everything is taken care of. That is like, that mental piece is really important part of it too.
I want to speak really quick to the spending money part and the saying no. And earlier you guys were saying like, you just expect that the answer is no. When we see our husbands work so hard, when we work so hard to get to where we are, and we feel like we cannot spend any money. Okay, let's relate that back to sex with your husband. When you're working really hard, you've had a long day, and there's no time to have sex with your spouse, or you feel like there's no time, or you fall asleep before, all that. Like, you deserve that. The spending money, the intimacy with your spouse, you deserve that. That is something that should be in place consistently. And when we give our clients, we tell them that spending money is literally a non-negotiable. Being able to have that for themselves, it is so nice and so freeing to see, especially the spouse. It's not a no. It's just, we have some guardrails around it, right? So, we have clients who from $100 to $500 a month, that's their spending money depending on their income. But like Shayna said, it's to know that your bills are taken care of, your spending is taken care of, your debt is being taken care of, your savings, like all that. Oh, and by the way, I can still go to Target. My husband can still go on his fishing trip. Like, all of this is happening. That is where we want you to be in your marriage.
Yeah. I have to say that was the biggest relief for me, because most people have a checking account. Everything comes out of that. Maybe you have a separate one. I did have one set up for our bills account. And that was really nice to know that, okay, those things are paid for. But then I'd look at my checking account and be like, well, I mean, but I really can't go to Target because I've got this and this and this and this that still need to come out of that. And then, and then you've got two people pulling from the same one, and the right hand's doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And all of a sudden $300 is gone. And you're like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? So I will speak from personal experience that has been so freeing. And when you remove that frustration from your brain space, you do have freed up space to maybe be more present in your own marriage and to be more intimate. And when I talk about financial intimacy, it's those types of things. Like, you're like, okay, we don't have to worry about that part right now.
Right. And that's something that my husband and I would talk about. It's like, and we've heard it from clients a lot, like that tension isn't there. Like, when that tension is gone, you got to find something new to fight about, or you could just go in the bedroom because there's nothing to fight about.
Or just not fight.
That's exciting. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But you're taking that, and we hear it like tension, strife, like there's always just a little anxiety about it. And that obviously affects your intimacy, your sex life, all of that. So.
Well, and it no longer becomes this parent-child relationship, because a lot of times it's one spouse handling the finances, telling the other one what they can and can't do. And then that one asking permission. Hey, can I do this? Is there enough money to do that? You no longer have to ask those questions. So you're together on this on the same level. And there's not one parent telling the other parent-child what they can and can't do. Like, that is totally removed. And that itself removes that tension like Shayna was talking about.
Completely. Absolutely. One of the things that I loved most about you guys, and I found you because I was searching for Christian podcasters, and I stumbled upon your podcast, and we won't go into my, stalking things, whatever. It's fine. We're here. We're friends. It's fine. It's fine. The court order has been dropped. But
Michelle's a really good social media stalker, just in case y'all don't know. She's like next level.
I mean, I am. When I want something, I'm like, let's go. But what I loved is that you spoke about money from a biblical foundation. It's not in every single one of your episodes, but you don't have to listen very long to know that it's not just about budgeting. It is about honoring the Lord and what He has given you and stewarding that. And that's what I love, the perspective that you guys come from, and is so incredibly valuable. How has that impacted your clients? I was going to say students. They're not your students, your clients.
Yeah. So I think what I had written down when you said the one lie that we would rip off, one thing that we know is people think, so if you go into the Bible, if you dive in there, and, Jesus is saying no one can serve two masters. And a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not greedy. I tithe, or I don't even have that much money. So obviously money is not my master. I'm not even trying to go make that much money. But what Vanessa was saying, if money is in your brain, it's affecting your decisions. Maybe you're short with your spouse because you don't know if that bill got paid, or you're short with your spouse or your kids because you don't know if you have enough grocery money or whatever. Like, these little moments, then money is controlling your decisions. It's controlling your emotions. It's controlling a lot. And it does become your master in that way. And so we really want to speak to that part of it. That's why what the system we were just talking about setting up, we need to take money out of the equation. It is just a tool. It is just a tool, and we want to treat it that way. If it's currently weighing you down because of that, we've got to get rid of that.
I would actually encourage your listeners to think about, do my decisions, are they focused around money unknowingly? Like, yes, I'm tithing. Yes, I'm doing all these things, but are you still actually being controlled by money? And I would challenge y'all to just think about if it is running your household and you just don't realize it.
That's a really good question and a really good way to put that. Because like you said, Shayna, maybe you don't have a lot of money and you're like, yeah, clearly it's not controlling me. But are you thinking about it all the time? And that's where I find myself sometimes where you're just like, oh my gosh, wait, are we going to be able to, your mind goes. Because even if it's set up, you're like, okay, but do I have the money funneling in? Like, is everything actually going to get paid on time? And, all the things. Is it controlling you? Because, and to your point, like money is neither good or bad. Like it's just a thing.
It's a thing.
Well, and so to double down when you said, how does it affect? I think the perspective we come from, and if you think about your audience, the church really has 2 points of view a lot with this. Either give everything away and give it to the poor and be, that's one side.
That would be my daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's the prosperity sort of gospel side, right? If we read the parable of the talents, there's a place for everybody and the resources God gave you. And we really want you to think about, it's not just faith, it's works. Like it's God is giving you something and you're supposed to do something with it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and to each his own, and as much as you want to do. It's not prosperity, like pray and money's going to rain from sky or whatever. And it's also not that you're not supposed, like the servant that buried it in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's a mentality people have it too. So our perspective is like, we just like, it's not a cookie cutter. Whatever your budget is, we want to make the most of it and make sure it aligns with your goals, with your life, with whatever God's calling you to do. That is where it's at. And then make them, like I said, make the most of it. Like these servants who, invested and got and did well. We want you to feel like, well done.
Well, my pastor this past weekend, or I think it was the weekend before this, it was the exact conversation that he brought up, was that the parable of the talents. And he said, I don't want to look back. And he wasn't necessarily, I know the Bible is specifically talking about money, but my pastor was talking about your resources. What were you called to do? What were you put on this earth to live out that calling? And you don't want to look back and go, I wasted it. Like I didn't fulfill, I wasn't loyal, and I didn't serve, and I did not like fully live out what my full potential was. And you could have, but you just, and again, I think there's a mentality there that some people get scared, they get nervous, they're not sure. Let the enemy come in and take over. And, if you can just veer you that 1%, then he's got you. But it really is just honoring what you were called here to do, and your finances, your resources, all of your resources, that can all be compared to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000%. I love you guys, and we could talk for hours and hours, and I'm here for it. Our listeners might just be like, okay, we're done. Yeah. But if let's leave these women with some hope. If every woman listening could walk away with one truth about money and marriage, which I think you guys kind of just did, but really her worth in God's eyes, what would you want her to hear loud and clear?
Well, I think, she's priceless. She's worth more than rubies. It's right there. It's right there. I think one thing that we're kind of passionate about, Michelle, is that you are successful. You are very smart. You're very savvy.
You're very capable.
You're very capable. A lot of times we'll hear these awful lines like, I'm bad with money or things like that. We don't believe that. We believe possibly nobody's shown you how to do it, and that's fair. But if we look at the other areas of your life, we know that you're a very successful woman. And so we just want to take that. You have the ability. We just want to give you a little education, a little help, a little nudge. And then you're going to master this too. This is going to be another one of your success stories. And we've seen it over and over, and it's true for you too.
Well, and Proverbs 31, how much help did she have? A lot. Love her so much. It's okay to get help. It's okay to seek resources. It's okay to find a podcast, go log on and see what more information free resources that they offer. So that way you can be successful and you can get the help and the tools that you need. It's all there. And so yes, take away that shame, take away the guilt, take away that shoulda, coulda, woulda, that terrible vocabulary, whatever that weight that you're carrying on to, and just release it. And then just know that you do have and nowadays we have so many resources available to us at the tips of our fingers. Michelle, can you imagine if we were in our teens right now with all of the podcasts and everything that we have? It would have been so different. But it's there, it's available to you. So take a hold of it, use it, and just, go forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love you guys. Your system has totally changed my life and the way that we do things. And I love that my listeners, if I'll let you give them where they can find your system. But I know if they use my name, Michelle, then they will save 10%, which is, you're already saving money. Look at that. Like right off the bat. It's awesome.
We're just starting off with a bang. Yeah. So you can just go to budgetbesties.com/Michelle and you'll be able to find out about the system that we're talking about, and Michelle's name's on it. So it's really great.
Yeah. Awesome. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.